Congressman Moore, great to have you on the Marlow Show today. It's nice to reconnect. You were a part of our event with the American Beverage Association, which was very kind of you to do that. It was nice to meet you there. But you could be on to some big things here. That's a seat where if you get through a primary, kind of a lock, but who knows what could happen. They have a very organized Democrat Party there that tries to fight folks like you. But what do you think compelled the president to give you that endorsement?
Well, I think if you go back to our history with the president, August 21st, 2015, Lab People Stadium, I was in the state legislature at the time, but was the first elected official in the nation to endorse him. And so we've been with President Trump since before the Trump train was moving down the tracks, Alex, we were with him. And so I just, being in the fight, and then his team asked us to run for Congress. We did that, and we've carried that America First agenda and been in Judiciary in the fight with them for some serious weaponization issues we dealt with in the prior administration. And so I think the president knows he needs somebody he can trust, and he sees that in our candidacy and who I am.
Yeah, it's just really important to note that you really were one of the first people who publicly endorsed him in 2015, where his candidate, he's probably pulling 5% at the time. One of my best friends is a guy named Charlie Hurt, who's on Fox News, and he wrote an op-ed endorsing Trump, and I think he's had it pinned to the top of his Twitter for 10 years. Like, I just think that's the sort of thing you take with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and we were just there. I mean, I was in the state legislature. I'd served one term, I was going to serve one more term, and then I was going to the House, and Trump comes to Alabama, and we're on the south end of Lab People Stadium, and guys from Trump, Alabama said, would any of you elected officials be willing to endorse Trump? Well, that day, at the time, there were 17 in that primary. He had less than 1% chance of getting the nomination. Conventional wisdom was, Alex, he couldn't beat Hillary Clinton. But my wife and I just went down the hall, said a quick prayer, and got a piece about endorsing this guy from New York City. Who knew that day that we would be the first elected official and then eventually be drawn into this fight with him in Congress and now in the Senate? So yeah, that is a proud moment for us, because I got a lot of pushback from a lot of friends that we both know that said, what are you doing? I said, I just think I'm where I need to be on this. I think this guy is the right man for the job.
So tell me about your background outside of the Congress, just for the audience who's unfamiliar.
Well, Alex, I'm actually in the garbage business. I tell everybody the transition from garbage to politics is pretty easy to make. I started a garbage company about 26 years ago. Still have my CDLs. I mean, I'd love to get out. We have heavy equipment. I'd like to be doing that. But when the president asked us to run for this, it was one of those things we just felt like we needed to do, we felt led to do, because as a business owner, I see, Ronald Reagan said the government's idea on the economy is when it's moving, you tax it. If it keeps moving, you regulate it. When it fails, you subsidize it. And I always thought if we would get the taxes and regulations out of the way, capitalism, free market could fix a lot of the issues we face as a nation. And so being a business owner, I dealt with that regulatory environment. I dealt with that tax environment. And so it's just one of those things, having that experience, being a business owner. Like I said, I literally have calluses on my hands. There's not a lot of hands in D.C. that have calluses. So we worked hard for a living, and be able to fight for the working man and for President Trump and America First, I think that's a good calling for us, and we're glad to be in the battle.
Yeah, and your record it's pretty spotless. You're on the right side of the abortion issue, a supporter of Israel. You are someone who wanted to cut off the blank checks for Ukraine. It's pretty much classic stuff. But what is your priorities when you get to Washington in the Senate capacity?
Well, I think we have to continue. In November of 26, we're going to have 24 months. It'll seem like 24 minutes. We'll have 24 months left with Donald Trump in office. And so trying to codify some of those executive orders, make sure we codify the securing the border, we secure elections. Those are the sort of things that we need to be moving across the finish line, because if not, the next Democrat with a pen and a phone will undo everything the president's tried to do. And so for us, it's just to finish what we started with the president, 14 years ago. We need to finish that and drive it across the finish line. And part of that's doing it in the Senate in the last 2 years of his presidency.
Yeah, really, really important. And I've been trying to tell people that this is why these midterms matter. And I'm starting to do more midterm content, try to start the year off with just get people engaged and focused right away. By the way, I just spoke with Nate Morris on the show, who's another garbage man running for another Senate seat. So we're going to have you guys have a garbage caucus, like just people who...
Yeah, a good trash caucus will always work, right? And actually, I have a trash pack that's like true Republicans always serve humbly. And I think Nate, being a garbage guy, we got a lot to talk about. But yeah, it's just those small business guys, and you find out in D.C. there is a lot of garbage. And if you can sort through the stuff that really smells bad and pull it out, recycle the good stuff, get it back in a bill, then you get it across the finish line eventually. It's not easy, but Nate has had the same training I've probably had, and there's nothing wrong with business guys who've gotten their hands hands dirty in the real world in a clean kind of way to fix problems, to be up here to help with D.C.
But this is where I think President Trump loves this stuff. He loves people who work with their hands. And I think his favorite type of people are the type of people who I think have a lot of success and make a lot of money doing normal guy stuff. I think that's really his favorite type of people.
I think you're right. I mean, he went in a garbage truck to some event, and when I saw that, I actually drove a garbage truck to vote. The last election, I pulled up on a new garbage truck, me and my wife, and went in and voted. I thought, why not? I mean, we got this new roll-off truck. It's sitting here. It's got the logo on it. Let's go vote in that. And so, yeah, I think he just loves everyday people, working people. And when you talk with him, the interpersonal relationships and seeing people that work with their hands, that have done the hard things in life, that maybe didn't have the silver spoon, but were able to pull themselves up and work through in this economy and certainly in free markets. I think he appreciates that blue collar, just everyday American. And I think he's the kind of guy that would probably rather spend time with a taxi driver than the sweet executives in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I think he really likes the executives of the taxi company. I think that's what he really likes. Like the people who understand what the working man is going through. They were that themselves, and they rose through the ranks and got to the top. I think those are the type of people that really vibe with him the most, which is I think kind of cool. I think that's a really nice trait that he's got. So tell me about let's get back to your priority list for the Senate. And I'll just say flat out, I think it's so important that for my audience, the engagement's got to start, because Congressman Moore set this up perfectly. We get 2 years with Trump. Do we want to spend it fighting off impeachments, or do we want to spend it legislating a America First agenda? Let's assume the Republicans keep the House. What's top priority?
So I think, like you said, the executive orders, getting those things done. And you're right, in the midterms, we saw in Trump's first term, the Democrats, when they have power, Alex, it was impeach, right? Yeah. And now the Senate, Schumer and those guys will literally shut the government down to slow the America First agenda. And I've been a proponent as his coach. I mean, I think we need to nuke the filibuster. The president said that because, look, Manchin and Sinema are the only two Democrats that wouldn't go along with the Democrats to do it last time. They're gone. And so if we really want to achieve this America First agenda, we need to nuke the filibuster so Schumer and those guys can't shut it down. And let's move his agenda across the finish line, put the downward pressure, do away with the wasteful spending, like I said, secure our elections, secure our borders, and make sure that America once again is a true city on a hill, as Reagan described it, and that this golden age of America can move forward. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to drive the agenda. The American people put him in office. We need a Congress and a Senate that are going to do what he needs done to finish what they've elected him to do.
Yeah, I think that's all that matters. And do you feel like that there's enough energy on our side? Because I was worried a little bit about some of the fissures, some of the factions that seemed to be emerging last year within the MAGA movement. But some of that seemed to have calmed down, so maybe we could avoid that causing a lot of problems. But I still remain concerned, and that's why I want people really focused.
Yeah, I think you're right, Alex. I think there is a lot of noise, and we don't need to focus on the noise, the signal. We need to focus on the signal. And I think you're right. There are factions sometimes that get a little off kilter, but we need to make sure we stay focused on the America First, the people making this nation great, and moving president. He's an incredible business leader. He's an incredible leader in our federal government. He's the greatest president in my lifetime. And so I hope we can get the factions back aligned. I think you're right. It's quieting down a little bit, Alex. I hope we can continue to see that so we understand that, we can't let perfect be the enemy of good. We have to work together as a group to try to, and look, Republicans are free thinkers. I'm in House Freedom Caucus, and it's the only place I go in D.C. where I don't feel like I need a shower when I leave. And we have some heated debates in that room, but when we leave out there, most of the time, 99% of the time, we come out united, and we're able to move a more conservative agenda to the floor of Congress, get leadership to pull to the right with us. And so I think we need to see more of that in the Senate and the House, and we don't need to let factions divide us.
So let's talk about your work at the Judiciary Committee right now. You guys have Jack Smith in tomorrow as we're having this conversation. Some people get the show after you talk to him. But what's sort of the objective there? What do you want to try to accomplish?
I think we just need to call it out for what it was. It was obviously a weaponization of the DOJ. We saw it with Fani Willis. We saw it with Alvin Bragg. We saw it with Jack Smith. All of these people that weaponized the government against a duly elected president and even a president who had left office, but they would not take their foot off the gas. And I think to call it out for what it was, that weaponization, because, man, when I first got elected to Congress in 2020, and as I was doing my town halls in 21, the fear was palatable in the room of people thinking that this government under Biden was going to target them. And we saw that with the IRS and conservative donors, the EPA, obviously the DOJ coming after people. And so I think that it's so vitally important that we call Jack Smith out for what he was. He was a hack in the DOJ, and he didn't. The separation of powers was not a thing. He was working with Biden. They sent him over there, and they were going after this president to make sure that they destroyed him completely. And this is a president that's had 96 felony indictments. He spent $76 million on legal fees. They raided his home 91 days before the midterms, impeached him twice, and nearly got assassinated twice. So we need to call it out for what it is, and we don't want that sort of thing ever again rearing its ugly head in the DOJ.
Yeah, I wrote a book on this subject called Breaking the Law, and I have a whole chapter on Jack Smith, and it's one of the longest chapters. The appointment was entirely unconstitutional. It was a job that didn't exist, and yet he used it to harass the president or the past president and future president. He was obviously working with the Biden administration on this. His wife is a political operative. She makes puff piece documentaries on people like Michelle Obama. It's a complete disgrace. This is allowed to happen. My question is, though, what can we get out of him, though? Because this job shouldn't have existed, but he'll be championed by the left. So what do we think is the best case scenario from getting him to testify?
Well, I think the best case is just proving that, and like you mentioned this, and we were going to bring this up about, he was illegally appointed to start with. He didn't go through the proper process. I think that's what got the case tossed, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
but
yeah, that's
he
it.
did not go through the process, and so I just think to the extent to show just the corruption and how it was solely focused on going after a president of the United States to destroy him, or a former president, however that looked at the time and wherever he was in office. This whole DOJ and what we saw, whether it was Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray and the dossier, all of that stuff, along with Jack Smith, to destroy a man that the American people duly elected. I think we need to shed more light on that, and obviously that's the plan tomorrow.
All right, so it's been exactly a year since President Trump got sworn in for a second time. What do you feel like are maybe some underrated highlights of the first year of Trump?
You know, I think there are so many, obviously the border and how secure the border is and the net negative of immigration flow into the country. We're actually moving people out. I think that was something he ran on and has done. And I think the way he has negotiated peace around the globe, I think 401ks are up 20%. And I think America, again, is respected, Alex, around the globe. I mean, what we did in Venezuela and the way that operation took place, we were the only military on planet Earth that could pull that off. The way we knocked out the Iranian nuclear capabilities. Those are the sort of things that I think that hit the news for a minute, but it is one thing after another that he's been successful and able to do. And I don't know how in the world he manages so many points so well. I think he's got good people with him, and never forget the economy. I mean, we've got inflation's down, the GDP's growing, and President Trump said 2 weeks ago when he met with the conference, he says, in the history of the nation, $3 trillion is the highest input we've ever had foreign investment in this country. And he said we're at $18 trillion for 12 months. And I think in the long haul, we may not see that this year, but that investment into the capital investment into this country to build factories and to make sure that people are working in America, the high-paid jobs, we'll see that over the next 24 months, I feel like. And then his GDP is going to be incredible.
All right. So you've been in the Congress now for a few years. Would you say are highlights of things that you've worked on thus far?
Well, I think, as a veteran, I was able to actually get a bill for veterans, Gold Star families, through the House, and I even got Democrat support on that. I got it out of the Senate, and I don't know if Joe Biden signed it or the auto pen signed it, but somehow or another, that veterans bill became law, and I've got a bill over now to move illegals that are caught with DUIs in this country to move them out of the country, remove them immediately. And so I'd like to see that get through the Senate, but for us, just being able to be that most conservative member from the Alabama delegation, being in the fight, and the opportunities to do what we've done. There's a lot of great legislation we've moved, but more importantly, I think my liberty score. If that's the number one thing, I think my job is to protect Americans' liberties. And so you're talking about Coach earlier, he's kind of competitive. He and I are the two top guys out of Alabama, our liberty score, and I beat him by 1 point, Alex. I tell him that all the time. But yeah, so we have the top liberty scores. And so, to me, just protecting the American citizens' liberty, I think that's probably my greatest achievement.
I've said this about Coach. No matter what you think of him as a guy, and I like him, but it doesn't matter what you think of him, always votes properly every time. That's the legacy. You can always count on him. He's never going to vote wrong. And that's what matters in the end. That's the point. So you get to the Senate, and day one, what are you looking to do?
So I'd like to kind of coordinate with some guys over there that are conservatives, let them kind of walk me through. Like I said, I joined House Freedom Caucus when I got here. There's some good groups over there, the Mike Lees of the world. I think they get a lot of things right.
Yeah.
Rick Scott, those guys. And so I'm hoping to just kind of fall in under their wing and learn from them, but through the process, never, there's always, you can compromise a little on preferences, but I think our convictions, we need to make sure we hold our convictions. We put the right people around us when we get there, and we'll be ready to go day one too, Alex. It's not like it'll take me a long time to stand up a team, and the relationships we have in the House and Senate, I think we can do some great things.
BarryMooreForAlabama.com is the website, BarryMooreForAlabama.com. Also follow him all over social media. Congressman, thanks for being here, and as the campaign heats up, keep me posted on how it's going.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate your time.
Same to you.